Sky Blue Fans TV. For the fans, by the fans.
Online, on your smart speaker, and around the world. This is BC Radio. 3 up front on BC Radio.
Hello and very good evening to you all. My name's Ken Stewart and we've got a very special edition of Sky Blue Fans TV in connection with and conjunction with BC Radio tonight. We have Garry Thompson in the studio and he's going to be interviewed by Claudio. We're going to go through all the old timers. I think we're all old timers. We all remember back from the 80s where Garry played some tremendous football for us under Gordon Milne and several other fantastic players. Our normal programme will be on Monday. Sky Blue Fans TV will be talking about a defeat at Norwich. We'll have that show on Monday evening, 7:30. But tonight is a special show. And tonight, Claudio. Good evening, Claudio.
Good evening, Ken.
How are you, mate? All right?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm really looking forward to this.
I am as well. I'm going to hand over to you now to introduce Garry and conduct the rest of the show. Thank you.
Oh. Evening, Garry.
Good evening, Claudia. Evening, Ken.
Good evening. Evening.
Really pleased you've made the time to come on and do this show with us. As someone who was brought up on 70s football, you're up there as one of my heroes. And it may sound a bit over the top, but it's true. Growing up, watching you when I was 10, 11, it was just fantastic to see you playing in the sky blue shirt. And we hope it's going to be a really interesting evening.
Oh, thanks for inviting me on. You're making me feel incredibly old by mentioning that you was only 10 when you saw me play. Apart from that, yeah, let's go. I'm delighted to be on. I'm happy to talk about anything sky blue.
Well, we've got our my first question for you. Growing up in Kings Heath, playing for local amateur clubs, did you ever think you would ever get the chance to play professional football? And how did you get noticed by the scouts at Coventry City?
Right, I mean, growing up as a kid, all I remember was the 70 World Cup, and obviously Pele tore it apart there, Rivellino and all them. And me and my older brother, we were going to be footballers. My other brother came from the West Indies, and my mum, with my sister rather, my mum introduced us to our new members of the family. Glyn, my older brother, he was the one that actually started teaching me to play football. So I started playing football, but I'm playing with my 2 older brothers. They're bigger than me, they're stronger than me, and they just not bounce me around really. Because initially I used to go to my mum and I was asking them to play, and they say no, clear off. And so I go to my mum and cry, and my mum would make sure I got in the game. But they didn't want me in the game, so they'd be physical with me. But bit by bit, I just loved it. And from there, I'm like the best player in me infant school, my junior school, as it were. And I make this. We play against this team just before I'm leaving junior school. So about 3 months before, and everyone goes, "Who's your best player?" And they all say, "Well, it's Tomo." And I'm just you're all changing together in the changing rooms. And they said, "Who's your best player?" And they point to this guy. This guy's got to be. Bearing in mind, we're just nearly 11. This guy's got to be nearly 6 foot tall. He's got sideburns. He's got a moustache, a little hint of a beard, like long blonde hair. And I'm looking. I'm saying, "That's a ringer. There's no way he's our age." Anyway, we play against this kid, and everything I do, I try and get the ball down, I try and beat him for pace. He beats me. Ball gets played in the air. He's stronger than me in the air. So I do what I do, go towards the ball, spinning behind, do all sorts of things. He reads it. Everything I try and do, he reads. So I end up resorting to my default, which is violence, and he beat me up. So that kid, I then met. We left school, obviously, left the junior school, went to secondary school. First 2 days at secondary school, I bump into this kid. And I'm like, "You're that big kid, aren't you?" And we get chatting. His name's Paul Dyson. Paul Dyson turns out to become the best. Paul Dyson is the best player in our year. There's Paul, Malcolm Percival, and myself. We're the best 3 players, but Paul is by far better than the rest of us. Paul's going to be a footballer, and loads of scouts are watching Paul. Percy and myself, we play for the school, we play for the district, we play for the county, along with Paul. Paul gets called up for England schoolboys. We don't get a shout in it, but we keep thinking we're going to get a chance. And in the end, Paul gets signed up by Coventry. Jack Hastings, who's the scout at Coventry City, he watches Paul on a regular basis. So every time Jack's going to be there, we pull out all the stops, we score goals, we showboat a bit, trying to get his attention, never notices us. Bob Dennison, who is the chief scout at Coventry City, he says to Paul one day, because to be fair, Paul is a golden child. Until Gary Gillespie comes to Coventry when he's 17, 18, Paul is the centre half that's going to go through and be a fantastic footballer for the club. He's one of the homegrown kids who's going to go through. Anyway, they said, "Have you got any good mates?" I think they were trying to make the numbers up. And he said, "Oh, yeah." And he mentioned myself and Malcolm Percival. So we've both been invited to go to Coventry. We trained there for 2 days. I think it was on a weekend. They then invited us back for the 6-week holiday. And 2 weeks into the 6-week holiday, they really like what they see, and they end up signing myself on schoolboys. And Malcolm, he trained, and Bert Ed was doing a training session one day, and Malcolm just got up and went, "I'm not doing this anymore," and he left. He just couldn't stand being told what to do on a regular basis, whereas I loved it. I had structure in my life. I got up in the morning, we had breakfast, we got to the training ground, we trained, we picked up chase balls and all that, and trained in the afternoon. It was fantastic for me, and it's the kind of structure I obviously needed. And that's how I got to go to Coventry. It wasn't a case of a scout seeing and saying, that boy's got a chance. And I'm just one of the group, as it were. Gary Bannister's one of the kids getting through as well. And I do the 6 weeks training in pre-season, and I loved it. Apart from running around the quarry just behind Brighton, everything was fantastic. So it's the Tuesday before the season starts on the Saturday. The Tuesday night they used to play. It was like first team and reserves with a mix of celebrities. Ernie Hunt used to come and play and all that. It was like a curtain raiser. And for some reason, I'm sitting on the bench watching this game, and Jimmy Hill's on the mic and that. And anyway, gets to the last 15, 20 minutes, and Bert Edwards goes to me, "Bomber, you got a goal in you?" So being the shy, retiring person I am, I'm going, "Goal! I've done a couple of goals. I've been watching you lot play. There's definitely goals in this man." Anyway, he puts me on the pitch. I'm on Highfield Road pitch now, and I naturally prick myself. Oh, what am I going to do now? As luck would have it, the ball comes to me. I dance between two players. I smash it. It goes in the goal from about 25 yards. Jimmy Hill's on the mic. "What a great goal from one of our up-and-coming young talents." What's his name? Thompson, Garry Thompson. Anyway, I'm getting lauded. I'm getting loved by everybody. On this Friday, I think Alan Robinson, who was a regular reserve centre forward, he got injured, and I think he did his cruciate. I don't think Robbo played again. And Bert Edwards pulled me in the office and just said, You're going to make your debut tomorrow." I had to sign some forms, and I played in Central League. I was 15 years of age, and then my debut was against Aston Villa in the reserves at Highfield Road. And from then, I always knew I was going to be a footballer. I just didn't know how I was going to get about it. But from then, I saw the pathway. I saw the chance to break through.
Did you always thought you could make it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing against older kids, bigger kids than myself all the time, and with my two brothers. And what we used to do in the summer holidays, we'd all get to the park, and we'd all be like, "Oh, did you join in the game?" And there was always, only games with about 40 people playing. You're always playing and they'd say to myself like, just hover about and just kick the ball a couple of times, and we'd do that. And then after the first half, people start talking and you get friendly and that, and then there's bags of crisp on it, there's dandelion and burdock or whatever, and all of a sudden they say, "Off you go." And I'll score a few goals. And from then, I always played against older, stronger people than myself, and just found a way to score a goal or find a solution, as it were. And so I love football. I was always carrying a ball. I was always booting a ball. Mrs. O'Shea, who lived next to us, lovely Irish lady. The amount of times she used to go around to my mum's, knock the door, really polite. "Could you tell him to just stop smashing the ball in the entry? It's driving me mad." All she could do was constant bang, 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 bang. And there was Mrs. Thomas, whose garden was facing us. So if I smashed the ball in the garden, it went over into her. So I was always getting the ball from her. And I just always felt I had the ball with me. Paul was exactly the same. And we just felt, I think we got to about 13, 14, and we just felt this is going to be, we're going to be footballers. But I couldn't work out quite how to get there until basically Paul Dyson mentioned me and Percy to Bob Dennison.
So who really helped you in your career at Coventry? Was there a player or a coach who really stood out for you?
The coach would be Bert Edwards. Bert Edwards was brilliant for me. He knew what I was like. He met my mum and dad, and I had a tendency to be explosive and volatile at times, and Bert knew how to curb that. I got sent off a couple of times in the reserve, or playing in the reserve in the youth team. Gordon Milne called me into the big office, gave me the curly finger, and we had a long conversation about not losing the temper on a regular basis. But Gordon was brilliant for me. Gordon was like, the older gentleman you don't want to upset. So when Gordon told me once, just before the West Ham semi-finals, how I disappointed him in one game, and I was devastated because Gordon Milne was the one. Ron White used to shout and holler at me all the time, but Gordon was the one you never wanted to upset or disappoint. And Gordon, he put me on the right road, as it were. But Bert Edwards, as a coach, Bert was brilliant. He worked hard with me. He showed me loads of different things. We used to watch little, not videos, but little clips of players and that. But he had a lot of time for himself. Andy Blair was with us. Andy Blair's my age group. And Andy Blair would be ever saying, like, you're Bert's son, you're Bert's pet and all that. Like, but I think they hadn't seen as much. They had seen aggression, but they'd seen aggression from the likes of myself. And they Coventry ran with it. He gave them an opportunity to take players and develop. But Coventry in that time, Gordon Milne had the team, and then he had to change the team. And so he's had to change the team and develop another team. So you got I'm just thinking now, Tommy Hutch and all them were playing, and we trying to get in the team, and they not got rid of them, but they all left. Terry Orth and all them, who were fantastic players, and they brought through another group before that. But before that, Gordon Milne had a crew he had to bring through before that. So Gordon oversaw 3 changes. So this is a manager that was absolutely fantastic for us, knew the game, his knowledge of the game was brilliant. And to work with young kids, because we were a good side, but we could easily get hit for 4 every now and again. But we were a decent side, and Gordon had to put up with all that, and coaches and developers. Bearing in mind, I suppose the idea with Coventry was to develop players and maybe sell a few on or whatever, but hopefully build towards something. And Gordon had to do that, and I just think the job he did was massively underrated. If we got to the League Cup semi-final, if we get to the final, and we'd have played Liverpool, if we'd have won the final, then who knows? But from the semi-final, I think if we get into the final, all of a sudden a few of us become household names, and the whole thing changes. And Coventry probably have enough money to bring in players to help accentuate what we're trying to do.
I've got a rejection letter from Bert Edwards.
Yeah, he rejected Laudrup as well. Apparently, someone sent me. A guy's got me on Twitter, and he said that he spotted. I think it was Michael Laudrup playing, and he said to Mark, "This kid's brilliant. You've got to get him over for a week. He's fantastic. What he can do with the ball, he's quick. He's this and that." And I think he did come over there to look at him, and he wasn't strong enough, and they let him go. Anyway, he develops into Michael Laudrup, and Bert Edwards sent the letter back, and he just said, "I'm really sorry." He said, "It never quite worked out. Wrong situation." He said, "But bearing in mind, we all make mistakes." He said, and when I first saw Garry Thompson play, I didn't think he would kick the ball, and I said he won't be here more than the weekend. So things change, and people make mistakes.
That's true, because I remember watching Denmark under 20s or under 18s play ours at Highfield Road against England, and I don't know if you played. I know Mark Haitley played, and we were watching it, and me and my mate, then he just had a trial, and we're in the stand watching it, and we're sitting there going, "This Denmark lot are useless." Half them played in the World Cup a few years later.
This goes to show you that sometimes you see players at certain levels and you think, "Oh, that ain't too bad." Then you see them again, like say 18 months later or 2 years later, and they're not bad. Like that's why I think being a scout is one of the hardest jobs possible, to look at players' development and think, in 5 years' time they could be this. It's a fantastic job they do.
Now, as we've mentioned, we're doing this in conjunction with BC Radio. Yep. So when this goes out in the podcast, there's going to be some music. And we've asked you to choose some bands that you liked and songs. And you said you're a big fan of Thin Lizzy. So we're going to play a couple of tracks from Thin Lizzy.
Nice.
Obviously.
One.
3 up front on BC Radio.
So why Thin Lizzy?
It's a strange one, because apart from me, my dad loved Elvis, and so like my dad and my mum did. Elvis would be played all the time, a bit of reggae, a bit of ska, but generally Elvis got a massive lot of affection in my house, or my mum and dad's house, and that. So I get to Coventry, and Tom English is there, and he obviously reintroduces me to Elvis again. But I'm surrounded by people who are listening to Steely Dan. Because imagine in the hostel, there's loads of different bedrooms. So wandering out of each people's bedroom, and everyone's playing different types of music. And I'll be playing Sound of Philadelphia or playing Stevie Wonder. So, like, I mean, I like to believe myself and Paul, ours was the hippest room because they all wanted to be in there. But I got invited to a concert once. My girlfriend, who then became my wife, Louise, myself, Danny Thomas, his girlfriend. There was about 6 of us with our girlfriends. We invited to this concert. And Thin Lizzy, I think they were the support band. And like, there's been a bit of a Barney about the seats and that. And that's because Danny's sprawled across 2 seats. And Danny Thomas, as you can imagine, he's about 5'4", but somehow he managed to be sprawled across 2 seats. He half kicks off. I get chatting with the geezer, and I explain to him politely, unless he settles down, I'm going to knock him out. And so he ends up sitting next to me. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is not going to end well, because I'm sitting next to the geezer thinking he's going to hit me. And next thing, you're going to have a fight and all that. So I'm sitting there waiting for it to happen, like, and like my missus keeps glaring at me, thinking, "No, this is my trouble. It's all your fault again." And next thing, the whole stage, everything is black. And then there's one light on the stage and that, and this black guy appears, like, the best afro you've ever seen, standing there playing the bass guitar. And I looked, and all of a sudden, I'm like, that's what, if I don't be a footballer, that's what I'm going to be. And I just listened to that, and from there, I just had an affection with him. I loved the way the music, the way they played the music. I love the way he lived his life. I mean, they say you owe your body nothing. He got every ounce out of his body. He enjoyed his life to the full, and it was terribly sad when he passed. But I think it was in keeping with the rock star image, as it were. And from then, I just listened to his music. I loved Thin Lizzy. I listened to loads of stuff. But early 80s, it was a Scar for the New Romance and all that. But Thin Lizzy was always in and amongst that.
Yeah, fantastic. The Live and Dangerous album is a great album. And I love the track, The Rocker. That's a great track.
Yes, well. Yeah. I mean, there's not many bad ones on that album at all. I mean, it's a great album, and I pull it out every now and again. But it is a fantastic album.
Going back to your career, I mean, you was one of only a handful of black footballers playing in the top league in 1977. Did you feel at the time there was little opportunities for lads of non-white backgrounds to progress? And also, those who did make it were some of the most popular players of their respective clubs. I mean, before you answer, Gary, I was looking at some stats. I mean, it's incredible, really. That I'm only picking out Blackburn Rovers because this. I was absolutely flummoxed when I looked this up. Howard Gale was the first black player to play for Liverpool. That was 1980.
Yeah,
he was Newcastle's first black player in 1982. I mean. It's not like you guys weren't around, you know what I mean? It was incredible. Blackburn Rovers, their first black player was in 1987.
Frightening.
That's astonishing. And I reckon virtually every club, the black players were idolised. I mean, Brendan Batson had played for Arsenal in 1974, and then, of course, he went to the Baggies. Yeah. God rest his soul, Cyril, at West Brom and us and Wolves and Villa, everywhere else he's played. So many. So, I mean, I could, Garth Crooks, there's loads. There's absolutely, Justin Fashanu, absolutely loads. So, going back to the question, did you think there was little opportunities?
Yeah, I didn't feel, in my head, I'm going to be a footballer. No matter what anyone tries, I'm going to be a footballer. So, I had that driving thing that I was going to crack on anyway. And obviously, there'd be racial abuse at times and different things would be happening. But my first real it opened my eyes to the situation was I'm playing for Coventry Reserves and I'm 15 years of age, and there was a guy called, I think it was Cliff Marshall, and he was a big 6 foot tall. He had a lovely afro as well. I mean, I judge players by that. When I look at people with an afro, I'm like, damn. So he comes on the pitch, and he's a right winger, and I think he played 2 or 3 times for Everton's first team. But he came on the pitch and he got booed on. This is a reserve game with about 300 people there. He got booed on. Oh, that's the first time. That's strange. But from there, every time you went up the north, you went to Sunderland or Newcastle or so even Millwall, for example, or there was a lot of abuse. But all I remember as a kid, Albert Johannesson played in the Cup final, 65, played for Leeds. And from Albert Johannesson, I remember there was the boy Charles at West Ham, Adi Coker, and there were little smatterings of black players every now and again. John Chidozie, obviously Laurie Cunningham came through us, and then there was sort of an explosion. Bob Hazel, George Berry, and I was just behind that. So by the time I got in, there was black players dotted around in quite a few teams and that. But obviously we were still the minority, and obviously there was still a lot of abuse flying around. And I always felt that things. I thought the opportunities were limited, but I also felt that I was lucky because I was at a football club where it didn't matter if I was black or Chinese or whatever. If I was a decent footballer, if I was a player they believed they could develop into a player and didn't cause too much trouble and get sent off too many times, I would get the best possible chance to make a career for myself. And like, so I was probably at a wrong club for that. I mean, I was interviewed by someone at Chelsea one time, and they were saying that the abuse. I had a kid, Nathan Blake, when I was at Cardiff, and he told me the stories that went on when he was a kid coming through at Chelsea and the racial abuse they suffered. And then I'm thinking, how lucky that I went to a club like Coventry City, where I took a little bit of stick, but most of the stick I took was from Tommy Hutch, Barry Powell, and all that about toughening me up, developing me as a player, not because of my colour and that. They just treated me, they were rough with me at times and that, but they wanted the best for me. And we're sitting in a bar in Hong Kong, and I went like, now then, I'm at West Brom by now, like, and I'll be gone for a few quid and all that. And these are coming at the end of the career. And I'm like, what's all that about? And they explained it to me. They said, listen, you're a young black kid. You got too much to say for yourself. You're lively, you're witty, you're funny, but you love yourself. And so, like, what's it going to be like if you got 30,000 people booing at you and people abusing you? You've got to be able to take it. So they used to give me stick, not racial stick, but they give me stick to toughen me up a little bit for the playing. So I look at it now. I was so fortunate that I went to a club like Coventry City where they gave me an opportunity, regardless of whether I was black, white, whatever. They gave me the chance.
I've got your book here.
Oh.
Don't believe a word, Garry Thompson.
Well, yeah, that's what the wife says. Like, she tell when I start talking, she's like,
I've read it, but I went through it because I was picking bits out of it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned an incident with Barry Powell where he called you by the name of a character from the TV film program Roots, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because at the time when I was at school in Warwick, we played another school from Warwick, and we were great footballers. We were rubbish at rugby, and but we had one black kid. I'd known him since I was 4, and he died last year. Such a big mate.
Yeah.
And he was black, and he was so fast. And our only tactic was give the ball to Tony, let him run with it.
Yeah.
And of course, the lads from the other school kept calling him by the name of that character in Roots.
Yeah.
Now, your reaction when I'm reading that book was slightly different to ours. We got really angry, and this is 1977, 78 when this came out.
Yeah.
And we were only kids, and we were flaring up at the teacher saying, "You can't do that. He can't do that." But we got so angry. Instead of, if it was a Hollywood movie, we would have won the game. In fact, we got worse as we got angrier.
Yeah.
And it basically turned into violence, and it didn't help, and we got battered. But your reaction was different. Do you reckon that was because you're kind of on your own and you're young and didn't know what to say, didn't know how to react?
Probably might have been a bit of that. I mean, but Val Thomas was there, was Danny Thomas's brother, and Val's 2 years older than me. So Val's the first black kid who was at Coventry before myself. And then obviously there's myself, then Danny comes in. So there's 3 of us around. But when I was a young kid coming through, Val was a professional. So I'm an apprentice, as it were. And the Roots thing was a big thing. And they all, not just Barry, they all call me Kunta, or they call me Toby. And I'd be like, I'd rear up a little bit, but generally, like, it was just, in the end, it was just part of something that was going on. Players took stick for different things at different times, and they just called me Kunta. And in the end, you just like, it just cracked on with it, as it were. Like, I mean, there were times I flared up because I couldn't go 2, 3, 4 weeks without some kind of flare up in one way, shape, or another. But yeah, we used to, they used to say things, they used to try and toughen me up. But like the Kunta shout came for a long, long time. I remember doing a Q&A and I mentioned it, and the people in the audience were like, they were shocked because. But now you're looking at this. This was late 70s, early 80s when all this sort of thing went on, and that was the mildest form of abuse you could have suffered. Like, because a lot of other things went on that was a lot worse than that.
We're going to go on to our another track. You've picked the Jam as another band. And I believe you're quite an admirer of Paul Weller.
I think the fella, when I was in the coach one day, me and Tom English, and we listened to the Jam, and it was a fight to get the music on. So imagine we're on the coach, you've only got one player, like, and we all we want our music, and we're the new kids, so we want our music on. And Bobby McDonald went, "This stuff is rubbish." I remember saying that that's this geezer. Well, I says he's a fantastic writer, writer of songs, like, and obviously a lot of political things about it and the way he wants what he wants to say. But there was a beat to it. Paul Weller and the Jam, there was a feeling behind it. And I just remember saying, this fellow absolutely brilliant. And all 3 years, I just not kept my eye on him, but you buy his stuff, you listen to his stuff and see how he develops. The Jam were fantastic. I mean, there were a lot of bands around that time trying to do the same sort of thing. The Jam were the best at it, I thought. And then Weller developed that and developed it again and again. I just think he's a fantastic singer-songwriter. And the bands he had, the Jam were a different class, but then he's gone on to have different bands as well. And he's just class.
Yeah, he's very, very good. Well, this is Sky Blue Fans TV interviewing Garry Thompson and in conjunction with BC Radio.
3 up front on BC Radio.
Right. Well, we've got loads of comments coming in. Do you want to take some questions from our the people watching?
Why not?
Yes. Evening all. Evening, Garry. Absolute heroes. Saw your many great goals. Legend. That's from Paul Hughes.
Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate it.
Cavandi. Evening all. Really looking forward to this. My son had Garry on his pod a couple of years ago and was brilliant.
Oh, right. Very nice.
Victoria Oakes. Victoria's one of our presenters, actually. She's having an evening off. She's saying evening all. Evening, Victoria. Hour 87. Evening, everyone. Nation Radio Coventry. I know Tony was there at Norwich yesterday. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Garry.
Good evening.
And Ian Plumlott, my hero. Grew up watching Garry. He was instrumental in my sky blue journey.
That's really nice, because imagine the likes of myself and Danny Thomas, we're in the team, but you're just fighting to stay in the team, because what we found was Mick Ferguson was the centre forward. Mick Ferguson and Ian Wallace were the centre forward, and they were a different class. So behind them, you got myself trying to get in and around the team. Frank McGrady's trying to get in the team as well. And behind that, there's other strikers. So even though people say you scored good goals, you had a good career, whatever, you're always looking over your shoulder, because I had on my shoulder Mark Haitley, and we ended up playing together, as it worked, and it worked out pretty well. And we got on really well, myself and Mark. But everywhere you turn, you'd have someone who was trying to nick your position, as it were. So it was always driving you on. So it was difficult at times, but I loved it. I mean, there's not too many options for me. I was going to be a footballer, or that was it. There was no plan B, which is what I should have called the book, to be honest. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and like Coventry fans treat me really well. I'll go down there for Legends Day and all that, and they treat me fantastically well. I love being there. It's a lovely, warm place, a family place, and I've got nothing but great memories.
Garry, I was going to ask you, listen here, fascinating sitting here listening to this, because I've got so many memories as well of your time at the Sky Blues. Was there a play that stood out for you during the time at Coventry that was fantastic and made it, and you know, who was basically the best player you probably played with at Cov? Who would that be?
The best player that Cov I'd play would be Gary Gillespie. I mean, Paul Dyson. Paul got a couple of bad injuries when he was 19, 20, and Paul had a good career. He played for West Brom, he played for Stoke, and he went round. But Gary Gillespie came from Falkirk. I think they paid 100 grand for him, and he was head and shoulders above everything else we did. He walked in, and we was like, the kid was silky, control the ball, come out with the defence with the ball, and so naturally, as a centre forward, I'm letting him have some. And fair enough, he coped with all that. I played against him for Scotland, England against Scotland, under 21s, and I think semi-final when I silenced the Hampden Roar, which Gilly doesn't like me to talk about, but yeah. And but it was one because I knew Gary's weaknesses, because the physicality he weren't too happy with, but everything else about his game, he was tall, he was good on the ball, his positional sense was superb. So we always thought Gilly was the one out of all of us that was really going to develop into being a top player, and if we could hang on, and maybe some of us would get a chance. But Andy Blair, if you speak to Andy Blair always thought he was the best player, and he'd give Gilly a good shout as well. To most people, Danny Thomas was the best player, because Danny came through around the same time. I wouldn't say like disappointment, but the one player I thought would be a great player and score loads of goals and have a good career was Tom English. Tom English for me was not charge. Like I charge around the pitch and I win headers and I'm a centre forward, get hold of it and all that. And Tom would sort of ghost around a little bit, but I knew if I worked hard but get the ball in around him, he could finish. And Tom English, a bit like a poor man's Clive Allen, the ball drops in the box, he's going to finish. And that's why he went to Leicester, and he says to me, we've got a Leicester, like we were best mates and that, so we'd be calling each other, go and see each other. What's it like over there? And we took Jim Melrose when Tom went over there.
Yeah.
And he said, he's not too bad. He says, I'd expect to be playing regularly. He says, they've got this kid down there, Lineker. It's all right, he's got half a chance. So yeah, you mentioned that went down really well 2 years later because Gary Lineker was like that. He kicked off. But biggest, not disappointment, Bodak, who's a fantastic. They put Bodak with me. Neil said it, who I was with on Friday. He said to me that every chance they could, they put Bodak with me because out of all the wingers we had, Don Nardiello was another one. Beat a man, the cross was coming in. Centre forward, myself, Fergie, that's what we want. And Mark Atley, that's what we want. And Bodak would cross the ball, get it, cross the ball line. Bannister, want to cut inside and have a shot. Bannister's going to score goals. He's not bothered about creating goals for other people. But looking at the players that went through, Coventry wasn't a wealthy club at the time, so the scouting system was fantastic. So just remember in my time, the players we had who went through the ranks at Coventry, fantastic. A lot of them got in the team, but I would say the best one out of all of them was Gilly. Although if you speak to Gilly, he probably says I was the best one.
Yeah, and of course he went on to play for Liverpool, didn't he? So
yeah, he played with his country, and I'm not sure he played in the World Cup, but he played a lot of games. Gilly, he's good footballer. He come back to Coventry towards the end of his career, and it never really worked out. But Gary Gillespie was by far, when we were all warming up and we're looking and we're saying, well, because me and Bannister would always warm together and we'd be taking a mickey and having a laugh and all that. But we'd look round every now and again and say, yeah, he's got half a chance. He's not bad and all that. But Gilly was the one we always went, yeah, he'd definitely make it.
Yeah, I probably agree with you there, mate. To be honest, I agree with you there.
What was frustrating with Gary Gillespie going to Liverpool was he didn't play for 18 months. He was in their reserves. Nowadays, he'd be loaned back to us.
Yeah,
but they did, didn't they? They got taught the Liverpool way, didn't they, in those days?
Yeah, you get to Liverpool, you know you're losing a year or 18 months of your career while you learn the ropes and that. And like Gilly said to me, he went on a phone in and I gone to West Brom and they were talking. He said, yeah, Tom, he said, like, good player. He said, no one knows why he went to West Brom. I went to West Brom because Ron Wiley bullied me to go to West Brom. But we looked at Gilly. Alan Hansen was a top level centre half. Now, I used to like to take the people, we go and play Liverpool and Grobler throws it out to Hansen and it goes into Lawrenson and he passes it and they pass it back and forth. Then it goes into midfield. Souness turns on the ball, rolls it into Dalglish. Dalglish turns, gives it and Rush scores. End up. And that's how it always happened. You never got a kick. You went to Anfield, you never got a kick. And I thought, well, if you're going to go to play at Liverpool, you ain't going to get in front of Hansen within a couple of years because he was at the top of his game by then. And I think if Gaz had gone anywhere else, his career would have been even better. I mean, he had a great career. He won things with Liverpool, played for Liverpool for a long time, but his career would have been even better because he was. It was Coventry scouting was brilliant. We picked up some great gems and that, and but he was the one we brought in, and he was better than anything else that we saw around that time.
We've got a question from Kyle Holly. What's your favourite moment in a sky blue shirt, Gary?
Favourite moment, I would have to say, I made my debut, and the situation was about 6 months before. I should have made my debut at Highbury.
This is a funny story.
Yeah, and I didn't make my debut, but it was all my own fault, to be fair. Faffing about as per usual. So Ron Wiley calls me in and says, "Do you want to be a footballer or an effing clown?" And I'm like, "Well, to be fair, Mister," and he goes, "That's exactly why you won't play football because all you want to do is see the funny side of it. You're not getting near the first team." 6 months later, I get a chance. Keith Osgood, who's a lovely kid, we bought from Spurs. I think we bought him from Spurs. He played up front at Spurs. And me, Frank McGrelis, and we're like, Gordon Mill, we're not having this. This is an absolute disgrace. I've told everybody I'm going to be on the bench at least. So we get up to get the game is played. We got beat 2-0 or whatever. And on the Monday, Tommy Hutch and all them are going, can't believe the managers took a centre half, played him centre forward instead of yourself. And I'm like, yeah, he don't know what he's talking about. He's supposed to be the manager of the football club. And much as I love Gordon, obviously I'm rubbishing him because he took me with the team. And so as Gordon Milne walks into the canteen and Barry Powell or one of them went, I think it was Hutch, "Don't moan to us, he's here, tell him." And Gordon went, "You got something to say?" And I was like, and he went, my office, went in the office, Ron's in there as well. And they just basically said, "We decided for your own good that we want you to make your debut at home. So you'll be playing tomorrow at Aston Villa." There were a lot of other expletives in that thing. And the fact that I thought I was picking a team and all that got me out of the office, made me debut that next night against Aston Villa. And all of a sudden, say it was off and running. But that was a really a beautiful moment for me to make my debut. I played, I think it was Norwich on the Saturday, and I got involved in I think it was Glenn Keelan and it was the centre of Duncan Forbes sandwich. They knocked cut my teeth out, knocked the hell out of me. Balls bounced, got in between the centre half and the keeper, went to head it, and he just laid me out. So I was like, they give you the magic sponge in your face, loads of water, get on, you'll be all right. Just carried on playing. And I've done my knee ligaments, but they kept getting me fit to play each week. I scored my first goal against Wolves, which is my third game. And from there, all of a sudden, that would have been, I would say, one of my happiest moments. But then the League Cup semi-final, you'd have to say the two goals in, which I haven't seen it for a bit, but I just saw it at the start of the show now. I've got to say, two mighty fine goals. But yeah, that was probably my best moment. I loved that moment. That was especially as we 2-0 down, to come back the way we did.
Yeah.
The atmosphere.
I'm gonna ask you about that later, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, making your debut against Villa, I mean, because for those who don't know, that is your team you support. That must have been incredible to actually be playing against. How does that feel as when you're playing against them? It must be weird.
It's funny because when I went to Coventry initially, like, I'm a Villa fan, and like I never found a problem with telling anybody that I was a Villa fan. And then I go to Coventry and find out everybody hates Aston Villa. And it's funny, it's not just Coventry, Wolves, Albion, everybody hates Aston Villa. So I'm like, I'll keep this quiet. So I make my reserve debut against Aston Villa, but I don't really tell anybody like that I'm a Villa fan and that. And then when I get a chance to play in the first team, all my thoughts are, I don't want to let Hutch down. I want to do well for the team. I want to do well. Much as I like Aston Villa, and it's a club I first watched when I was 8 years of age or whatever, this is my chance to show what I can do. So you can detach yourself from all the liking of a club and all that. I'm playing for Coventry City, which is my club. They're giving me the opportunity against Aston Villa, and I'm going to do my level best. And at my first touch of the ball in what is now the Premier League, ball gets played to me. I spun off the centre half, ball's been played to my feet. I went to control it, lifted my foot up, ball went under my foot. And all you heard was a bit of, and I thought, this ain't going to end well. But after that, it went really well. For a debut, without scoring, it went really well. And all of a sudden, I was off and running. And my mum and dad were really proud. And because it was something I've always said I was going to do. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play in the league. This was my opportunity. And I got a chance to do it. So I was actually made up with that.
Brilliant. We've got a question from Craig Robinson. Good evening, chaps. Does Garry think there's a Sky Blue player he played alongside that would fit in well in today's Sky Blues team?
I would say with the way they play now, a finisher like Tom English would be perfect. But Gilly's the one. Gilly would fit into any team, any level, because he can control the ball, can pass the ball, he can read the game really well. So Gary Gillespie would probably be the one. Andy Blair would probably be good as well, because Andy had a great engine, could pass the ball. Probably thought he was better than he actually was. But we've had this conversation over 20, 30 years, me and Andy, but he was a very, very good footballer. I'm just trying to think, what else did I play with? See, you look at likes of Bodak. What if you see videos of Bodak when he was on and doing his business? That kid was different class. He could score goals, he could create goals as well. And so I think most of us playing in this level now, we've coped with it. I mean, I think out of all of us, I'd be the one that would struggle because I was a very physical player. And I'd think, no, I mean, I had loads of goals taken off me when I was playing and not fouling because the referee saw something or, there was something going on. But nowadays, I think that because of my physicality, I'd probably get booked. I'd end up getting signed. They'd be like, "We've seen enough, Mr. Thompson. You can step away from it now." But because I was very physical. But I think a lot of the players now would cope with it because it's all about quality. I mean, for me, and he's called the best player in Coventry's history, Tommy Hutchison. Tommy Hutchison is as good as anything I've ever seen and played with. And I played with Ray Wilkins, and I played with some great footballers like Les Ferdinand, Ian Wright, and all them. And Hutch is in the conversation as one of the best players ever. And he also had the wickedest tongue. If you made a mistake, he'd cut you to ribbons. But he did it with love. You knew he loved you and he wanted you to be better, but it was harsh to take at the time. But Tommy Hutchison would probably he'd fit into any team, I think. Especially now, he's playing left-hand side on the right foot with his right foot, which is what they all love to do now, to come inside. Because I'll be waiting. Hutch would get the ball, he beat his man, he go back, he beat his man, he go back, he beat his man, he go down a lot, he go and beat his man. And I'm waiting for a cross to get any chance. Sometime this week, he's going to come in the box. Me and Haitley be making runs and pulling out and making runs. And we're like, he ain't going to cross it. When he's ready, he'll send it in. Then he's throw it in and then like, You should be reading that. But what a player Tommy Hutchison was. What a player.
The last time I met you, you were with Gary Shaw and Peter Bodak.
Yeah.
And what I remember from that night was that you and Gary Shaw were limping from the injuries you've had, and Peter Bodak was probably dancing, because I think throughout his career he didn't play that many games. So I think what it was, he looked a player. He went to United, played one game, didn't he? And he went to Man City. And the story is, what Peter says is that he went to Man City to save them from getting relegated, and they got relegated. but I think his problem was his lifestyle outside of football, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Peter was a wild kid, like a great ability. But if you look at Peter and Gary Bannister, now Peter will play on the right-hand side, Banner will be on the left. Banner will be coming inside his right foot. Bodak want to go outside on his right foot and cross the ball. But Bodak could score a goal as well, as could Bannister. But Bodak's career, I wrote the book, and I'm delighted with how it come out and how it's been received in that. Bodak's got a book in himself as well, because you sit with Bodak like that night we're having a drink and a chat. He's got stories about him and Harry Hahn, and when he was in Hong Kong, and when he was doing this and when he's doing that. Some of the things that Bodak's been involved in his life, he wasn't cut out to just play football. It's too disciplined for him. He's got to go here and go there and do this and do that. He's a wild child, but he was a very, very good footballer. But he was never going to settle at somewhere like Coventry and just crack on at Coventry and get 10 years under his belt. He was always going to flit around. And he said to me one day, he was at Crewe. So he's at Crewe, and they got a practice game on Monday. And Dario Grani, he's the most technical man in the world. So you've got to be in your shape. You've got to make the runs. And you've got to peel out and come away with the ball and turn on the one side. You've got a corner. Bodak's holding onto the post. So Dario comes up, "What's up with you?" And he says, "Listen, if you drank what I drank the weekend," he said, you'd be on the floor. You wouldn't even be standing holding his post up. And he told us the story. And I said, "So do you think Dario would find that funny?" He said, "Well, and that's what Bodak's like. He's just got no filter at all. And he'd tell everybody, I've been drinking, I'll be doing this, I'll be doing that." And he couldn't understand how people would be going, right, tick him off the list, because he's not trouble. He's a harmless kid. He's a lovely kid, but he can upset people in authority, especially if your job depends on you winning football games. Then you can't really rely on Peter, I suppose, in that respect.
And he'll always remind you of the goal at Watford, won't it, against Watford in the League Cup. It was a beauty. We beat them 5 that night, didn't we? Yeah. We drew 2-2 at Watford, and we beat them 5 at our play. And that game, that game, the atmosphere was electric, and we didn't think we'd get a better atmosphere than that. And then obviously the West Ham game, the next home game was better. But Bodak set us going that night with the goal. But he was just a good footballer. Great ability, too cheeky by half, got too much to say for himself. He's one of them players that every now and again, Steve Jacobs or someone just slap him. And you'd be like, "What's that for?" "I just can't have. I've told him to shut up, and I've told him about 10 times. Shut up! Don't say another word. You can't help yourself." And says it, bang. But he was one of them. But next thing, he's bouncing about and telling jokes and cracking on. I think he just knew he was like the annoying little kid that you have to slap every now and again. But he just bounced back and carried on. But he was a good footballer. We got some more comments coming in. Wow, Garry Thompson, legend.
You see, for me, Hutch is a legend, or someone like that. Someone that played for Mickey Coop. Mickey Coop was one of the finest footballers, because he could play fullback, centre half. He could do a job in midfield. Great ability. The amount of times Coopy took me outside and smashed balls at me, saying, "Get hold of that, get hold of that." Because when I'm playing on a Saturday and I want to send the ball, you better get hold of it and that. And he got me into being a centre forward, as it were. They taught me different things. Different people would take me away and do stuff. But Mickey Coop, different class. So people that I look at as Coventry legends, but so I suppose if someone calls you a legend, you got to take it. It's nice, isn't it?
Right. That's a comment from David Granigan. Good evening, David. David's going to come on soon as a guest, actually. Garry, what's your thoughts on the current City squad? Do you see them doing well in the Cup and League? Out of the current squad, what player stands out for you?
Well, I'll save the player that stands out, because I think it's an obvious shout, to be honest. But the current squad, I'm not seeing as much of the team this season as I've seen highlights and bits and bobs and I think that I've got 2 mates who I work with who come in every Monday morning, and anybody else I'm hanging around with just walks away, because they know for the next 10, 15 minutes they're going to tell me blow by blow Coventry City's game on the Saturday, and Mark Robbins has changed the system. And earlier in the season, they thought, and last season as well, we're going down, it's going horribly wrong, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, the thing turned round and Robbins got the squad together. You've lost a couple of players now. It was a kid that's gone over to Sporting Lisbon. him,
Gyökeres.
Gyökeres. He was different class, and he looks like he could play at any level, that kid. But then he goes, and all of a sudden you're looking and thinking, well, where are you going to get the goals from? Ellis Sims, who you brought in, and Hadji Wright, I think will score goals. But I look at the one kid, and it's quite an obvious one, the boy O'Hare. I think when he left Villa, we were looking and thinking, well, he's one of them that we thought could develop. But they were always saying, if you're not in and around the team at a certain age, then they want to make space for others. But he always had something about him. Went to Coventry, good player, looks a good player, but no goals, not enough goals and assists. And I remember saying to Stuart Linnell, while we were doing a Q&A a couple of years ago, and I think he'd just been injured at the time. And I said, if you can get the goals and assists to match the rest of his play, this kid will go for a lot of money. He's a very, very good footballer. And since he's come back from his injury, he now looks like he's in that vein where he's getting goals and assists, scored again yesterday. I think he could go on to be. How old is he now? Because he looks about 7, but
24, I think. 24,
23, 24.
Yeah. He's still got a chance to go. I'm not saying leave Coventry away, but he's got a chance to be even a better player and take Coventry even further forward, and then see what happens from that. Because you lose Hamer, who was a wonderful player for you, but you imagine them two in the same team playing on a regular basis as well. Like at the level O'Hare's at now, all of a sudden you've got two wonderful players. So yeah, I would say O'Hare would be the one that's I think he's top draw.
If you have just joined us, it's the Sky Blue Fans TV with Garry Thompson as our guest in conjunction with BC Radio. You've picked some groups and songs to play, and of course the specials. I got me two-tone stuff on here. So, I mean, you were growing up. You're the perfect age for the two-tone explosion, wasn't you? What were your memories of that?
Well, it started. We'd hear ska as kids, and we'd hear music as kids. But when he's growing up, no one else really listened to it. Then all of a sudden, I think I was 17, 18, and all of a sudden there was the start of the explosion. And I'm at Coventry, and the Coventry, the start of it, where it explodes from. And all of a sudden, we're hearing about these bands. We're trying to see these bands. Tom English thought he was Terry. When he wasn't being Elvis, he thought he was Terry Hall. So like he tried and model himself on everything Terry did. We just loved the energy of the specials and that. We loved the feel of Coventry at that time, because bands were coming through, the thing was exploding, and the music was different class. And all of a sudden, all of England or everybody was listening to that sort of music, and we were all at the centre of it. So we loved it. It was brilliant.
Fantastic. Everyone, you listen to Garry Thompson on BC Radio.
Online, on your smart speaker, and around the world. This is BC Radio. 3 up front on BC Radio.
Well, I think at this point, we probably should replay those goals again, because I'm going to have to talk to you about that evening in 1981. So hopefully we'll get the video back up and we'll see the goals.
Devonshire enjoyed that little run until he was felled by 2 men. Blair through the middle for Thompson. And Thompson's got one back for Coventry. And he feels a lot better about life now. No time to pass back. Gillespie. Hunt. One last desperate fling from Coventry. Touch for Thompson. Yes, he's done it. Well, it's a dream come true for Garry Thompson. 3 goals he scored tonight. 1 for West Ham, 2 for Coventry.
Yeah, Garry, that still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it just made me laugh, just looking at it, because my reaction, the explosion of joy, and then all of a sudden I've got my head down, and all the lads grab me, and
it's always excited, calm.
Yeah. So I do this every week. Because the way the game started, Les, God rest his soul, I think, was it Billy Bonds had a header, and Les tries to catch it, and he slips squares under him, and he looks round as if no one's seen that, and the referee's like, yeah, unlucky, 1-0. So we're a young side, we got to the semi-final. These are an old team as well, experienced team, but we've got energy, youth about us, we got pace, and we could cause them a problem. Anyway, within 10, 15 minutes, they're taking a throw, and the BBC boys, who I do my stuff with the Villa games and that, every now and again they pull the own goal out. So they'll pull it out and go, "What were you doing there? What were you thinking?" And I'm like, I keep trying to tell them, and all they do is just take the mickey in that. But I said, listen, there was a throw-in, and I saw Alan Devonshire, who is a wonderful footballer, and he's standing on his own. And I'm thinking, they're going to throw it to Devonshire. So I try and tiptoe around to Devonshire, thinking he's going to open out onto his left foot. I'll nick the ball off Devonshire, and then roll it back to the keeper. As it turns out, Devonshire turns. I nick the ball, ping panther him, nick the ball off him. But by now, I'm into the penalty area. So I look up, and our goalkeeper is on his goal line, as you would expect it to be. In them days, you could pass it back to the goalkeeper, not a problem. So I actually do look down, make sure I got the ball under control, roll it back to the keeper. As I roll it back to the keeper, he's standing next to me. And he goes, as it goes into the net, he goes, "Keepers." So I fell on the floor. And Les does what Les does. He's like, "Oh," to let the crowd, it's him. He's messed up with that. So I'm sitting on the floor. I'm like, pardon my language. I said, "Les, you try like." I said, "What? You said keepers?" He said, "Yeah, I said keepers." I said, "Yes, but you were 6 inches from me at the time." Anyway, we're 2-0 down, and the game is going against us. We go in at half time. I'm expecting, because Ron Wiley was not shy to give me a rollicking on a regular basis. We played Aston Villa once, and at Villa Park. It was 2 days before I broke my leg. And I've been called up for the under-21s, and I make a mistake for the goal. They have the near post corner, flick on, goal. The ball's played in, and I think we're going to win the corner. So I start moving out, as you do. Ball gets flicked on. Alan Evans puts it in the net. So I go in at half time. No, it was just after half time. So I turn to the lads, and I'm like, "Oh, really sorry about that." Jim Alton and all them was trying to grab me, like physically. And I was saying, no, a minute. Finish the game. I get the equaliser. Great header, and it's at Villa Park as well. So you can imagine, all I thought was my old man and all his mates who they're in the Villa at the Holt end and that. And he'd have been hearing all the abuse I'll be taking. All of a sudden, my old man will be joining in with him, because obviously, much as he loved me, he sort of caught between the two. So I got the goal, well happy, break my leg 2 days later. So I get the commentary game. We're playing West Ham this time, and I'm thinking, we're going to get butchered for this. And they were brilliant. Gordon, I think I said in the book, he'd give the best speech since Monty El Alamein.
He said it was.
Look at your teammates and that. Look at the people you're growing up with. This is the opportunity. This is our chance. We can still grab it. All we need is one goal. We get one goal, and all of a sudden we're in the game. Anyway, we go out there. We're full of, let us have them. Go and play the second half. Andy Blair picks the ball up, and the ball Andy plays through to me is inch perfect. I've done what you normally do. Go towards the ball, spinning behind the two centre halves. Ball's played down the channel. It's me and Phil Parks is coming out. By the way, Andy, if you watch, Andy passes the ball to me. He's probably still holding that position now. He's like, what a ball. So I run through, pass it past the keeper. I end up with a goal doing the Yukini. And so it's 2-1. And then I think it's Danny Thomas picks the ball up, comes inside on his left foot, by the way, as a shot. I think Hugh John says, crumbs at the rich man's table. Keeper parries it. Jerry Daly taps it in 2-2. Dying seconds, and you see that the third goal. Steve Hunt picks the ball up. He must have just got up the keeper.
Yeah,
he must have ran about 70 yards carrying the ball. I'm the target man. I'm the centre forward. So initially I've got Hunty, roll it to me. I'll bounce it off me and we play it again. He's just carried on running. So I made 4 different angles for him to play the ball into me. And by the time he plays it to me, I'm around the edge of the box. And he thinks I'm going to give him a 1-2 there. He's got no chance. Ball got played to me. Added turn. To be fair, my first touch, it bobbled up a little bit, but I smashed it in. And then, like you say, there was a moment of bang, the joy, and then the elation, and just everything just came to a head. And then within 30 seconds, I was like, concentrate, get back on with the game. But then a whistle goes not long after that. And then John Sillett, the first one that comes to me is John Sillett, who grabs me and picks me up and then the fans. That was one of the first times people said players went to the fans and celebrated, because the fans helped us through that. 2-0 down, that could have been 5. The fans stayed with us, and that, as young kids as well, that was an experience where you learn a lot about yourself in that situation. You learn how you can cope with adversity and you can come back from it. I've got a goalkeeper that threw the first one in and then blamed me for the second one. Although I do hold my hands up to some of the blame for that. But I said to Les after, "What are you doing?" So we had we end up on Gary Newborn. We're doing the show after interviewing that. I walk in, I got this lovely suit on, so I'm sitting there, I'm suited up, and I'm looking at myself in the monitor thinking, "God damn, you're looking good." And then I hear Les talking, all this, I told him keepers, I said keepers, I don't know what he's thinking. So even then, we walk out, I'm like, you're going to keep passing the ball. At the end of the day, it's done now, isn't it? We've got a chance to go to West Ham, and that's one of the biggest disappointments of commentary. We went there, and there's a book out called, is it 29 Minutes from Wembley? And we were 29 minutes, we should have got there. I felt that, I think I had a chance. I think Mark had a couple of chances right early on. We get one of them, then that game's done and dusted. But he never got the goal. They ended up going to Wembley, and I
was-
watched the Wembley game, and I think all the time I think that should have been us. Because
It was heartbreak, weren't it? When that last minute goal.
I mean,
I was there that night. Yeah, it's heartbreak.
I mean, Coventry won the cup a few years later, won the FA Cup, and I remember I just joined Villa, and we got relegated at that same time. Coventry won the cup, so you can imagine.
Great,
I took so much abuse. But Neil Sillitt rang me and he said, "See, big man, you should have come to Coventry because Coventry tried to get me as well, but they couldn't work it out or whatever." But these things happen. But I always felt that if we'd have got to Wembley that year with the squad we had, and maybe I know Jimmy lost a lot of money in America, and then players had to go, but that money might have been able to tide us over, so we could bring in a bit more experience. Because Dave Sexton came in the next year. He brought in Jerry Francis. Jerry Francis was magnificent for us as a coach and a player coach who would work with us and develop us and talk to us. And even when I left and went to West Brom, Jerry would ring me, or Dave would ring me every weekend. How did the game go? How did you do? Did you get hold of the ball? Did you do this? Did you do that? And that it wasn't like I've left Coventry City and that's it. They wash their hands of me. They continued. That's the mark of the men. That was the mark of people at Coventry City. They still cared about you even when you left.
That night at West Ham, because my dad used to run the Leamington and Warwick Supporters Club, so we had a coach from the King's Head in Warwick. We had two coaches. The coach in front got bricked. I got thrown over a brick wall by some West Ham fans. It was absolute carnage. From memory, I believe you and Danny had a tough time on the pitch that night. Yeah. Is that right?
I got after the first leg, the press had come to the house, and my girlfriend Louise, it's a white girl, and so they said, "Oh, we'll take some pictures of the two here." And she's a bit shy, but we had some pictures taken, and she's draped across the settee and all this. And we got the hate mail I got over the next week or so was ridiculous. And I'm one of them. I read it, roll it up, and throw it in the bin. And Danny Thomas got it and read it, and Danny took it really personal. And I'm like, don't let Bobby in. I mean, they've spent wasted the time to write me a letter to be vitriolic to me, and they can see that it's made absolutely no effect on my life at all. But that's the way I was brought up. At the end of the day, say what you want, I'm still going to do what I got to do. So like, it didn't bother me. It really bothered Danny. And but we went to West Ham, and we were warming up before the game, and up until then, the atmosphere was intense, and there was hatred coming off the West Ham crowd. And the ball went into the crowd, as it were. This is in a warm-up. So I walked across to get the ball, and all I saw was these geezers in donkey jackets, and they're trying to pull me in. And so I went, I'll give that one a miss. And then we get the ball. No, you lot get the ball. And that was the start of it. And I'm looking around, and then I hear about the fans that were coming and the coaches that got bricked and people got attacked after the game and that. And I'm thinking, like, this is football. This is a game. This should never be that. I know it's intense and we all want to win, but they took it to another level that night. I had never known people be as violent and as nasty and as horrible about something like that. And so I begrudged them going to the cup final, and I was praying they would get beat in the final, because I don't think they deserved to be there. We should have been the team that was there. We didn't win. We didn't get there. But they couldn't even win gracefully, if you know what I mean. They're just,
the violence.
We've got some more comments coming in. Ian Small, evening Ian, is a regular of ours. I remember the Coventry Evening Telegraph back page headline, Thompson breaks leg, felt sick, not since Roy Barry had you missed a player so much, glad you recovered. What's it like, Gary, when something like that happens and you are out for quite a while? Because you were out for quite a while, weren't you?
Yeah,
it must be tough, and especially if the team starts doing well and you've got to try and get yourself back into it.
Well, first of all, on the Wednesday, like I say, I scored the equaliser. I've been called up for the under-21s. I think I'm 19 years of age or whatever, so I'm on top of the world. You know, everything's happening for me. It's all rolling out beautifully. I have the day off on the Thursday. Friday morning, I'm in my digs. I mean, my digs lady, Mrs. Dunn, lovely lady. She's decided she's going to cook a fry-up. Now, I have a light breakfast, but I wouldn't eat an awful lot. But I'm like, no, because Friday, we was at the FA Cup, so it was going to be a long session finished by some running. So I thought, well, no, I'll just give that a miss. Anyway, all I could smell the bacon and eggs and that, and I thought, well, I'll have a little nibble, as you do. So I had a little bit of a nibble and all that. We go into training, and normally there's cones everywhere, and there wasn't. Oh, that's strange. So they put on a training session, and it was a good session. And Ron Wiley went, look, at the end of it, what we're going to do, we're going to have a 20-minute, all 11-a-side game. And if we get the quality that we want out of that, off you go and have the weekend off. So we're going to really put it in this game. They didn't have enough bodies, so they called it. There was a kid who played in reserves, a young lad from Liverpool. He was a left back, but he was built like a centre half. And they've ended up playing him at centre half, as it were. Like, so we start the game. Yeah, he's a trialist, so there's no. It's not a physical game. It's not going to be one of them where you need shin pads and that. We're just finishing the training sessions off. I'm chasing a ball. I do, centre forward, get towards the ball, spinning behind. I've done the first set, the centre half. I spun him behind. I'm chasing the ball. He's coming across, and I see him coming, but I'm quicker than him. And I think, well, if I get there, I'll just touch it past him. And as I touch it, I'm cleaning on the goalkeeper. As he's coming across, I touch the ball. Next thing, I'm lying on the floor. I open my eyes, and I can't remember who it was. Say like Gillespie or Paul Dyson, they're all looking at me and they're going, don't look at your leg. So I look at my leg and pass out again. So when I finally come to again, I realise I'm in a bit of trouble. My leg is killing me. I'm thinking, oh, please, let it be ligaments, because obviously I've been called up for the under 21s. It's all going well. Please let it be ligaments. The groundsman, Joe, they couldn't get an ambulance down to me. So Joe, who had an estate, they put me in the back of his estate. Now imagine what that was like. He's the groundsman. So they put a bit of carpet down or whatever. Sorry. Put me on there. And he has to drive me. Now, you know what writing's like, because you go down, it's rocky, isn't it? So we're going up. And I'm like, oh. Like, we finally get to
all the bumps.
Yeah. We get to Conway. They get me out of there, take me in. Like George Dalton's there, brilliant, he's looking after me and that. And like, I'm lying there, but there's so many bodies in there, they can't deal with me at the time. So like, I've got my Coventry kit on. So people kept coming by, looking and going, is that Garry Thompson? And then they go, Garry, would you mind signing? And I like, pardon my language, would you fuck off, leave me alone? I was in the end, the surgeon, they were going to pin my leg together. And they realised that eventually that there was a young surgeon who kept arguing with them, saying, you cannot do this, he's an athlete. You do that, his career's done and dusted. And in the end, he got his way, and they just plastered it. They pushed the thing together. They x-rayed it every couple of months. And like, he basically saved my career. A guy called Mr. Aldridge. And when I made my first game back against, I think it was South. I came on against Liverpool when Paul Dyson scored and we beat them 1-0. I come on first.
Yeah.
He was at that game, and the club invited him as a thank you. And I owe my career to him, because if he had, my mum and dad came straight to the hospital, and my mum said, first thing she said, she'd read that article that broke my leg, and someone had rang her and said, oh, what's Garry going to do now? His career looks like it could be over and all that. And as a mum, all you hear is the negatives. So she's hearing that my career's over. And I didn't know what to think, because I've never been in that situation. I've had ligaments, I've had little injuries, but nothing like that. And the surgeon's saying, well, you'll be out for over a year. Hopefully we can get you fit, blah, blah, blah. But there was no real guidelines on it. There was no idea what was going to happen. But the best thing that could have happened to me, a few weeks later, I've been voted Coventry's Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year. So like, they play Wolves, final game of the season. So they get me down there. So, give me a bit of food and all that. And I'm sitting in the dugout, as it were, next to the manager and that. Anyway, so the game goes, and the young kid plays centre forward that day, makes his debut, Mark Aitley, and he is electric. So he plays brilliant. Like, now, I'm not one of them that gets angry or upset or jealous and that, because I'm broke my leg, I can't play. So I'm watching the game, and Mark's played really well. So I go into the dressing room after and we say, well done, Mark, blah, blah, blah. And Ron Wiley comes in, he says, what do you think? And I went, well, yeah, it was a good game. I think we beat him 3-0. But Mark didn't score, but he played brilliantly well. And he said, what do you think of the centre forward? I said, yeah, he's done right. I thought he played really well. And Ron went, that's what life does. As one door closes, another one slams right in your face. It's done for you now. But he knew exactly the thing to say to push my buttons. Because I went out of there and I was thinking, I can't swear on this show, but I was saying, you wrong and that. And all he'd done, when I got myself fit, I realised all he'd done was try and wind me up. Mark played brilliant that day, but I need to have something to battle for, to get back to. Everyone was feeling sorry for me. The one thing I didn't need was sympathy. I needed people to get into me and make me get angry and get myself back to playing. And in the end, luckily, it happened. Ron takes all the credit for it. Ron took all the credit for it, should I say. But he knew how to push me buttons to get the right responses from me. And that's why he ended up buying me going to West Brom. And until he passed, that's why I class Ron Wiley as one of my best coaches. Him and Dave Sexton, I thought, were two of the best I'd ever had.
It's interesting you mentioned Mark there, because we went from Ian Wallace and Mick Ferguson, small and a tall striker.
Big little man, yeah.
Alan Green as well would play as off the striker.
Donald Murphy.
Yeah, and then we ended up with two strapping centre forwards, which is quite unusual, wasn't it? Really.
Big John Sillett. Yeah, Big John Sillett said it because everyone played big man, little man. You used to play with the two wingers usually, or occasionally you'd play with the three and one midfield player tucked in. But generally it was the same sort of thing. But no one played with two big uns like. But we were both big, we were quick, we were strong, good in the air, but we were both mobile as well, so we could stretch teams as well. And we could retaining the ball and being a centre forward as well. We were learning that, but the other we could run, so we could stretch teams the other way. So Sillett, who said to me the other day, he said, what you two did was what the opposition did not like. They didn't, centre half didn't want to turn. They didn't want to be facing their own goal. They didn't want people smashing into him. I mean, I watched Andy Gray play. This is when he's at Aston Villa and he is in his pomp. His 18 months was the best centre forward display I'd ever seen. But Andy Gray's only about 5'10". Now, every time the ball went to the centre half, Andy Gray came across the centre half, but he led like that with his elbow and then he headed the ball. And I'm watching things like that. And then Sillett was saying to me, you two are physical without being dirty. You'd be really physical. And centre halves don't want that. You cause them problems. You run in front. You win tackles and that. And he said, so it made sense to play the two of you. And you were both getting better at retaining the ball. But we had Andy Blair in midfield. We had what I think is one of the best players I ever played with. And I played with him at 3 clubs, Stevie Hunt. And Stevie Hunt could dictate a game as well. Good player. And we was a footballing side. And you had two battering rams at the top end of the pitch. But we could score goals. And we weren't just like big men just lumping up to. We had a little bit about us. I mean, Mark, for me, had more than myself because he was very quick. And down his left side, he was rapid. And he had a hammer of a shot as well. So, like, we had a little bit of something that mixed it up. And that's why Tom English, in the end, couldn't get in the team. Although I felt Tom should have always been in and around the team because Tom could always score that goal. When you need a goal, Tom would be the one to produce it for you.
It's interesting because of the two of you, Mark Haitley and yourself, I always felt at the time with fans, it was you're either a Garry fan or a Mark fan. I was very much not because you're on a Garry fan. What about you, Ken?
Yeah, I agree. Very, very similar sort of players, aren't they? And I'm not because you're here. I was more of a Garry fan, I think. Because
I think Mark was a bit divisive, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah. Well, Mark was very
a strange character.
Yeah, he was very erratic in his finishing as well, and he could hit the goal from 30 yards, or he could kill someone in the crowd, like as it were. You never knew. There was no not quality, no direction in what he was trying to do. When I broke my leg, I was in hospital, and I'm lying in hospital. There's 4 beds like me lying there, and there's one guy who's got been in a motorcycle crash, and he's got a thing over his leg, and we're chatting away and that, and he was saying about the football, and he said he says I've seen you play, and I've seen the team play. He says my favourite's Mark Haitley. I think he's a really good footballer. I really like him. And I'm sitting here with a broken leg, but people, as you say, people either like Mark or like myself, but together, well, as a pair, we there was no animosity between the two of us. We both wanted to get on, and we both would work hard for each other. We both try and help each other because I think we both realised that there was a space for both of us in the team. But when he was coming through, I think he felt he would take my place, or I'd keep him out of the team. Eventually, once we started playing together, we didn't feel it would work, but we made it work. And then I had the same thing. I went with Cyril Regis. I met with Cyril, and I'm thinking, well, this can't work. But then I played with Cyril, and Cyril wasn't a natural centre forward. He was more like an inside forward. Yeah. Great touch, but he could run down the side. But he was powerful and strong. But he was built like a centre forward. But then when I played with Cyril, I loved it. And even though he's the most laid back man in the world, he's Cadbury's rabbit, and he's like, easy, my man, just relax. Cyril was brilliant. For me, it was so aggressive and running around and all that. And so that worked as well. And so I ended up playing with Lee Chapman as well, Sheffield Wednesday. And each time I went, this could never work, and that, whose idea is this? And each time it kind of worked and that. So maybe they know more than we do.
Yeah.
Well, we're listening to, spending an evening with Garry Thompson on Sky Blue Fans TV with BC Radio. We're going to play some music next.
3 Up Front on BC Radio.
Well, Garry, that was Suspicious Minds by Elvis, of course.
Yep.
Now, I looked in your book and I saw that it was a firm favourite of people you were really close to. Isn't it a bit strange to have somebody from a West Indian background like in Elvis?
It would be strange, but if you met me old man, then you'd see that, because he didn't dress like Elvis. My old man was one of the smartest men you ever met. Always had that hat on. His hair was always slicked back. He always had he looked a proper don as a black guy. But then I'm looking at my dad. He's my hero. Like, I'm looking at the old man, and I'd sit there sometimes and he'd listen to music, and sometimes he started off with Jim Reeves or something like that, which is obviously strange choice for a black man. But he used to listen to all kinds of music. But when Elvis came on, or Frankie Sinatra, he loved all that. But Elvis was the one. He loved Elvis, and he'd say to me, "You see that guy? He sings like a black man." And then you hear Elvis sing, and like he's got that soul in his voice. And I'm like, yeah, I have that. And initially I was into Elvis a bit because of the old man. But like Suspicious Minds, the old man loved that song. But In the Ghetto, which is when I had to do my initiation at Aston Villa, that's what I sung In the Ghetto like. And obviously they were jumping up in the aisles because I rocked the place. Oh, that's what I tell them. Because they were waiting like to pepper me, weren't they? But I didn't get peppered, so I think it went okay. So most Elvis songs, I really got a thing for Elvis. I love the tune. I love the melodies about it. And yeah, it was just part of me growing up. In little periods, it'd be same through my career. Like there's a career of the specials, or there's a spell. It's the specials, the selector. Earlier on, it's like Sound of Philadelphia. It's Thin Lizzy. It's always in little blocks. There's periods where that music I would love, and I play to death and all that. But yeah, Elvis has always got a special place. And even now, you get an Elvis tune coming on. There's all this. We're all tapping away. We're like, yeah, we have some of that. He was the king.
Brilliant. Ken, I believe you got a question you wanted to ask about Gordon Milne.
Yeah, I was going to ask, obviously the managers you played with at Coventry, Gordon Milne and Dave Sexton. What was Gordon Milne like as a chap? You did say he's quite a laid-back guy earlier, compared with like Dave Sexton.
Well, Gordon was Ron and Gordon were good cop, bad cop. And generally, Gordon was the one you didn't want to upset because he was always so nice to you. And he would point out things. And for us, Gordon played for England. He was in a World Cup squad and all that. So Gordon Milne knew his stuff. Ron Wiley was... my opinion at the time used to be he'd bully you to get what he wanted, didn't he? He was always picking on people and that. But Ron was doing it because he knew the way to get to what he wanted. Gordon was a manager, so he didn't have to get involved too many times. But tactically, very, very spot on when he was talking. When he used to call you to the office, you dread getting the curly finger. You get the call to the office, and he'd sit there and he'd, would you like a cup of tea? And he'd just go through the game, and he'd go through the bits you've done wrong and the things you've done right. But it was always done in a measured, calculated, but a nice way. Ron would just bully you and just say how rubbish he was and all that. But Gordon was brilliant in the way he dealt with you. Dave Sexton, exactly the same. Dave Sexton was possibly one of the best coaches at the time. He was ahead of his time. And Dave would be one of them. You'd see in the morning, you'd walk in, you'd see the team, you'd say, "Hello, Gaffer." And sometimes he'd be smoking a cigar and he'd just walk straight past you and just blank you because he's locked in his own mind. And other times he'd walk past me, go, "Come with me." And he'd take me and he'd say little clips, and it'd be of Franz Beckenbauer picking the ball up and breaking the lines in midfield and going forward to have a striking goal. And Beckenbauer, I saw so many videos of him, or Gerd Muller turning in a box and that. And what he'd do is sit at home and he'd work out like little 2-minute clips. Have a look at that. Take that. Have a look at that. This is like 20, 30 years before they're all doing it. We was watching videos. And we play on a Saturday. We'd watch a video of the game on the Monday, and they'd stop it every minute when you made a mistake, and we'd go over that. And it was terrible, but it taught you an awful lot. And as managers, they taught us an awful lot. Dave Sexton for me was a brilliant coach. Ron Wiley was a brilliant coach in another way because he knew how to push your buttons. And Gordon Milne was one of the best managers because he knew how to handle you in all situations. He knew. I suppose there's nothing he hadn't dealt with in his time as a player and then a manager. So every eventuality, he knew the reason, he knew he could deal with. Plus, he was at a club where we knew that if you got to Coventry and you're the first team and you get to £400 a week, you're at the door. So I get to £400 a week. I signed a 3-year contract, £400 a week. And suddenly they decide that Jimmy Hill, we're not selling our best players. Like, Leeds and Arsenal came in for me, and he just said, "No, it's not happening." And to be fair, at the time, I wasn't that bothered because I just signed a new 3-year contract, and I thought, well, I'm quite happy to stay because if we add to what we've got, this can be even better. Dave Sexton broke my game down, so this was my last sort of 18 months, year at Coventry, as it were. It was a bit indifferent to start with, and it was only towards the end of that I got back to being even better than I had been before. And that was Dave, because he broke my game down. He took me and said, "No, you want to do this, blah, blah, blah." And I became an even better player. So by the time I got to the Albion and I'm under the guidance of Cyril Regis, all of a sudden I'm a more complete player. But Dave used to still speak to me and call me, and I'd bump into him at games, always chat to me about aspects of my game that I can improve on and all that. Technically, so brilliant, so on top of his game and so ahead of his time.
And he had a fantastic team, didn't he? A young team there, Dave Sexton.
Yeah.
It's a shame it sort of broke up. Danny Thomas and all the youngsters there.
Dave leaves. Dave joins commentary, as it were, like, and because Gordon goes upstairs to be general manager, and Dave takes us. And I think the first game we play Man United, and Dave had been just been sacked from Man United, and we tore him apart that day. I mean, Ray Wilkins was shouting. I was like, "What's going on? What's going on?" We played ever so well that day, and from there we because I was with Dave under 21s, so I know how good he is. But bit by bit, he's working with the players. He's doing different things. Some of his training sessions were different. And there's one that I always remember, like, because remember the training ground is sort of here, but just on the corner up the hill is Massey Ferguson.
Yeah.
And one afternoon, Dave says to us, right then, Haitley, Thompson, say Tom English, Danny Thomas, you're out this afternoon, 2 o'clock. So we go out at 2 o'clock, we have a jog round, do some finishing and all that. And then he puts 4 balls out and he says, right then, do a trick, but don't touch the ball. So I'm like, oh, we'll do a trick. Step over, do a step over, drag back, put your foot over the ball, but don't move the ball. So you got about 20 seconds in your locker of that. And then, I'm like, what are you doing? Keep doing it, keep going. And after a bit, the lads from Massey Ferguson, they're on their lunch break, they look over and they can see these 4 players dancing around over a ball, but not touching the ball. Is that what you do every week? No wonder you're all crap and that. We got butchered and we kept saying, Gaffer, you know. And he said, no, keep going. Show me something different. And that was him. He was always coming up with different ideas. Laurie Cunningham was taking corners with the outside of his boot. And I think he went to Real Madrid and was doing that. And then he had us doing it. He'd see things and say, right, I'll have that. And I'm like, I'm the one in the box. I'm going to be heading it in or smashing it in. Like, what? I'm not taking corners and that. And he say, no, that will teach you how to kick the ball properly. So when it does come to you in the box, you can actually get a good connection on the ball. And a lot of his things he did actually made sense in the end. He made Jerry Francis take me out of an afternoon. And in the penalty area, Jerry would have 10 balls. He'd smash them at me. So I have to control it and have the shot before it went out the D. He couldn't go out the D. And the D's a tight area to work in. And little things like that. And the first couple of times, the ball's going all over the place and all that. And Jerry's going, I think you're taking a mickey. Like, he's supposed to be a professional footballer. But bit by bit, you get better and better. They teach you how to do different things. And it was all a learning process with Dave and all that. Now, I got to the point where they broke my game down, but all of a sudden I'm getting back to what I was. We play, there's a lot of stories I'm going to be leaving, and I knew that there was Jimmy L had problems in America. And then we played Norwich on the Tuesday. I got sent off. Olga Harida smacked Mark Haitley, and I said to the referee, you're going to do something about that. And he just went, get on with the game. So being the kind of person I am, I smacked Olga Harida. Referee's come over, and he's warned me and all that. Next thing, I'm chasing the ball, and Greg Downs, commentary favourite, Greg Downs, ball's been thrown out to Greg Downs. I'm chasing Greg Downs down. Greg knows I'm coming. And as I'm coming, Greg plays the ball up to the centre forward. Like, he just boots it out of the way and jumps out of the way. I come sliding and jumps out of the way. Referee's over, get off. And I look at Downs, I went, I never touched you. And he said, referee didn't touch me. There was intent in what he was trying to do. Get off. And that was my last game with Coventry City. FA Cup game, we're out. On the Wednesday, I'm out with the wife. We're looking for baby stuff and that. And I get in the house, and Jimmy Hill rings the house and basically says, you're going off to West Brom. And I'm like, no. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, go run and look after you, blah, blah, blah. And it was a long conversation. And I'm like, no, I ain't going. And in the end, the wife, because he said they were 6 weeks from going bankrupt. And that was the reason why I ended up not leaving, but I ended up having a conversation with West Brom and ended up getting bullied into signing. And that summer, I left in the March. That summer, Haitley's, whose contract was up, Danny Thomas's contract was up, all of them. And that was classed as the Exodus. But Bobby Gould came in. Yeah. Bobby Gould brought in loads of Terry Gibson and all of them. Stuart Pearce. And all of a sudden, I mean, I think, was it Liverpool you beat? You beat someone. Yeah. 4-0. And everybody was like, oh my word, all them lot that were there before, what a waste of time. This is the future. Because we sat there and thought, hang on a second, how does that work? But they not got rid of players, but they had to let a lot of us go. But a lot of players' contracts weren't going to sign anyway because they weren't happy. Danny Thomas went on the radio once and he said, well, Tomo left and we decided we all had to go because, and I remember bumping into Danny going, what are you doing? Because for years, people used to say to me, you traitor, you broke that team up. And I'm like, listen, it's a long story, but I'd never really got to saying it. And then when I wrote the book, a couple of people, I mean, who's the guy who used to do the TV with Andy Gray? Massive Coventry fan.
Oh, we went out to Dubai, didn't
Richard
he?
Keys.
Yes, Richard Keys. I do a podcasting with Richard Keys, and he's in Dubai, and he's been beamed in, and he's asking, they're talking back and forth, and he says, "Yeah, the young Thompson, blah blah blah. Yeah, what a team we'd have had a country if he hadn't gone like as if I said, that's it. I'm up sticks. I'm leaving there." But it was never like that. And at that time, we never had any power. If this was done now with the agents and all that, there's no way it would have happened that way. But these things happen, and in the end, I look at my career. My career should have been a lot better, but I had a good career, I had a great time, made some great friends, and I just had a fantastic time. Bearing in mind, my options at 8, 9, 10, 11 years of age were quite limited. So actually to play football, see half the world, nick the odd girl, and just basically enjoy myself. No, I can't complain.
Well, they say things happen for a reason, don't they? And
Exactly.
it was a completely new squad for us then, and I was gutted at the time, and then obviously Bobby Gould coming in, it was a completely different ball game then. And
Yeah.
Great memories.
So out of the two, then, out of Gordon and Dave Sexton, who would you want as a manager? Which one would you think would pick the team that would have suited you?
I would probably say Dave Sexton, because Gordon was brilliant, and he knew how to get the best. But Gordon needed Ron. They were a double act. They worked really well, and the technical. Gordon was very good on the technical side, but he let Ron obviously direct the sessions and direct all that stuff. Dave Sexton controlled every aspect of it, and Dave Sexton would stop and he'd look at Les Seeley and he'd I can work out something, a little session for him, or I'll work out something for Tomo or Danny Thomas. Danny Thomas came to Coventry as a midfield player. I wondered a schoolboy. They ended up turning Danny Thomas into a right back, and he was an England class right back until he had that terrible injury. Dave Sexton was responsible for a lot of that. I mean, Danny, obviously, under Gordon Milne, played full back and was very good. Danny Thomas went on another level. Dave, as a coach, was as good as I've worked with Howard Wilkinson and Stevie Coppell. I've worked with some great coaches over the years and that, but them two would be in the conversation, and definitely I would have to say Dave would probably shade it. He'd probably be the best one.
My dad used to always shout abuse at Gordon Milne. He always used to say he couldn't motivate his missus. Now, when I was 11, I didn't know what he meant by that. We're in the Westgate Arms Hotel in Warwick, which isn't there anymore. And Gordon Milne's there with his wife. Yeah. And me as an 11-year-old, my dad said, "Was Gordon Milne there?" So I trot off to the table and I just sit there. In all innocence, I says, "My dad thinks you can't motivate your missus."
That went down really well,
That's probably why I got that letter of rejection from Bert Edwards.
It's funny because, like I say, Gordon, when he first came in, because was it Joe Mercer was the manager, and Gordon came in as the assistant, as it were. Joe went upstairs, Gordon took the team, but Gordon had an aging team. Gordon has then changed the team where you've ended up getting your Tommy issues. Because when I first went to Coventry, my first 6 weeks, I remember going into the canteen and, like, apart from obvious things happening, like your pants getting pulled down in front of the dinner lady and all that, the one thing I remember looking at was there was a guy there called John Craven who scared me to death. He looked like the most aggressive, physical, horrible man ever. Chris Catlin was there for a few weeks as well. And as you know, Chris Catlin is not shy to let people know what's what. And so, like, it was just a dressing room full of characters, and Gordon had to deal with that. Imagine Gordon was only a few years older than them, and he had to deal with them, and he had to bring some in and all that, and change that. Then he got the team with the likes of Hutch, Jimmy Holton and all them, and Mickey Coote, Barry Powell and all that. And then change that team again for the likes of Gillespie, Andy Blair, myself, Stevie Hunt, and all that. So he overseen not generations, but three different classes of player, and still kept Coventry in what he's now called the Premier League. That's a fantastic job.
And what's interesting is when you think about 1980, 81, we had a team where 9 players, I think, were under 21 or 21 and under. If we had a team like that now in the Championship, the fans would be absolutely, they wouldn't be happy about it, would they? No. They'd be thinking, we're never going to survive in the Championship. Yeah. You guys were making a fist of it in the top league.
That's right.
At a time when you as a forward would get battered, the wingers would get kicked all over the place. I mean, some of these lads would have a field day now under the new rules and laws.
But there's no real physical contact anymore, not too much anyway. And like, back in them days, it was GBH. I mean, I can't remember one of the lads saying one day, "Get your retaliation in early." And I was like, and all of a sudden you realise why, because they're centre halves and people were going to smash you and give them half a chance. If the chance to play football was on, they'd play football. But if there was a chance to lay into you and leave one on you, they'd do that as well. which is, as you say, you just saw myself and lots of Hateley and people limping about like a good and light. But the likes of Bodak, who never really got involved in a tackle in his life, he still could still dance and move about like.
Oh, I think we've got some more comments coming in, I think.
What's that?
Oh, I know what it is. It's Stephen McGovern's asking, what do you think of Mark Robbins as the manager?
I have to say, I think he's been one of the best things to happen to Coventry City for a long, long time. His first period there, I thought he did well. Obviously, he's done well because he's gone off to another club. Didn't work out for him. Came back to Coventry, and I remember hearing a podcast with him the other day, and I think it was a Monday night club or something. And he was saying,
on Radio 5 Live, yeah,
and it was really good. And he came on, and he just said basically when he first came in back to Coventry, the first thing he had to do was get the connection between the fans and the players again, because we'd lost all of that. And the moment you lose that connection, you've got a problem. There was always different problems with the hedge funds and this and that going on all the time. And I didn't know half of it. And when I go to Coventry, I'd hear a bit different stories and all that. But the bottom line was the team weren't playing particularly well, or they'd have little spells, but it was never consistent. And there seemed to be problems up above as well. So it was a mess. And Mark Robbins has come in again. And just listening to him talk that day on the Monday Night Club, and the things he had to deal with, and like all the time, he's just tunnel vision. Right, I can keep going. We'll deal with that one, deal with that problem, deal with that problem. But he's still got to get a team to win games. He's still got to keep players there who you could actually sell or whatever. Anything player of any value, there's a chance he'll be stolen from you. And he's got to bring all that together, turn it into a team that can win games. And he's over the years, he's done it. I think he's done an absolutely fantastic job. I mean, I listened to him talk, and I didn't realise how bad it was. I mean, I'll go to Coventry every now and again, and like sometimes the atmosphere was a little bit iffy, but it was because the fans were hurt because what had been happening. They've seen their team being taken away from them. There's no connection with the players, as it were. People were coming and going. It was a transient club. Players came in for a couple of years, left a couple of years later, nicked a few quid, whatever. The whole thing just seemed to be a mess. And now he's got it all going in the right direction. Should have been in the Premier League last year. I'm watching the playoff final and I'm thinking, well, to be fair, first half you could have been 3 down. Second half, all of a sudden, I'm looking at that game completely changes. And until when Hamer gets injured, then he changes on that. And I'm thinking but for that, you end up being in the Premier League, and it's a whole new ball game again, financially wise. Everyone's raving about Luton, but looking at the Coventry side that played Luton that day, do you think Coventry would have struggled if they'd have kept hold of Goycrest and that? Would they have struggled to be in the Premier League? I think they'd have been okay. I think. In answer to your question, which is probably a long-winded way of answering it, I think he's done an absolutely magnificent job so far.
Well, you're listening to Garry Thompson on Sky Blue Fans TV with BC Radio.
3 up front on BC Radio.
We've got some more comments coming in. David Granigan, some fantastic goals, but just reminds you how bad the pitches were back then.
Oh, God.
Ours wasn't as bad as some others, though.
No, Coventry City's pitch was always the groundsmen at Coventry City and the training grounds were different class. And you look at some of the pitches, you look at Derby County, which was always the utopia. If you could play on Derby County's pitch, was just a piece of crap.
You can play on it,
but generally they were. But I mean, we had Villa were playing a couple of years ago. I think it was Gillingham in the cup. And a couple of players who, the bounce of the ball ain't right because it's just a normal pitch. They have it all. Everything in the Premier League and lower down is nice now. But back in the day, you go to some places, you'd be like, oh my word. We go to Wickham, the pitch would be lovely. You go other places and it was like a field, and after a ploughed field half the time, they'd be you'd always see bits where the penalty areas would be just mud, and the centre spot would be mud. And the other centre spot would be mud, and then down the flanks it'd all be nice and green because no one ever ran down there. And that's how pitches were. Pitches were a disgrace at the time, but it was a chance to play football, and we didn't go out and go, oh, pitches isn't up to much. No, but nowadays the players will probably look at it and say, oh, we can't play on that. We got a chance to play football, and we were delighted to do it. You
mentioned Steve Hunt earlier, and I saw his debut away at Derby, as you mentioned, the baseball ground.
That was a 7.
No, we beat them 2-0 at Derby.
Right.
And we played in our chocolate kit. It's the first time the fans ever saw it.
Yeah.
So did the players at the time have a preview of the chocolate kit, or did they just unravel it? Because
Jimmy Hill was a genius in a lot of ways, and he had so many good ideas. And the idea was with the tea, and just I think there was one time we weren't allowed to on Match of the Day or whatever because of the numbers, and that it was advertising. But Jimmy had an idea that I think there was a sky blue kit, there was a red one, there was a yellow, there was a chocolate brown, and we had no idea about the chocolate brown. I turned up, we think we played Leicester one night, and me and Danny Thomas walked into the dressing rooms, and like we wouldn't see the kit beforehand, but we were away from home, so it could be anything. And they were all laid out chocolate brown. So we got to Dave Sexton, that's his gaffer. I'm going out in that. I can't be going out in that. And Dave couldn't understand why. He was like, what's the matter with you? You had a chance to play football. You're my number 9, you're going to play. I gathered, look at it. Well, I can't be going out in a night game. I can't be going out. I'm going to get butchered. And he could not actually realise what I was talking about. And in the end, it's like, Dave's just get on with it. So we get up ready, we go out. And when you warm up, and I never used to warm up too much, but when you warm up, you'd have your tracksuit top on. So, it'd be disguised and whatever. By the time I took the top off, like, everything just went quiet. And like, oh, I can see some teeth. Oh, I can see some. We got absolutely butchered. And then, like, I'd say, you see what you're bringing. But Dave just couldn't see it. All he could see, game of football, making runs and all that, like. But he never saw the chocolate brown thing. And I was trying to explain to him years later, and he still didn't really get it.
It's worth $1,000 if you got one.
Oh, so, I've heard that. I mean, they're collector's items now. Them kits.
Yeah.
But we were never allowed to have kits. Jimmy Herbert, God rest his soul, he would have the 3 or 4 different kits and that, and he would keep all of them. And at the end of the season, you say, "Oh, can I have a top for such and such and that?" And Jim, "Oh no, we can't do that, son. We're not allowed to do that." But word is, they used to get sold and all that, like. But we never ever got hold of anything.
Oh. Yeah. So I've got a question from Ralph Wiggins. I really believe if we hadn't sold Garry, we would have won the first division title. Because when we sold him, 8 players asked for transfers. The thing is, it was a running down of contracts, wasn't it? It weren't they asked for didn't they all contracts ended?
Their contracts are ending. And like Coventry have been trying to negotiate with them since the October. Now I had a brand new contract anyway, so like they weren't negotiating with me, but Danny Thomas, Haitley, Steve Jacobs, a load of them they were negotiating with. Then obviously it came to a head, but you're looking at a team that was a very, very good young side that's developing as well. And anyone, I say with their brain, would look and think, hang on, if we can add a bit more experience to that, then that will coach. You look at the Chelsea side now, they've got a load of good young players. They've only got Thiago Silva, who is like as old as me. So they need a bit more experience just to help these kids through their bad spells and that. We would, if we had that as well, we had in a couple of positions, a couple of players just to help us along, a younger Mickey Cooper, for example, or someone like that. Then that team, I believe, and no one can convince me otherwise, that team would have gone from strength to strength. Whether we won the first division title, I do not know, but I think we'd have had a good fist of it.
Yeah. So we've got some more comments. We have a few more comments. We've got one more question, and then we'll have to call it a night because we're running well over time.
I'll have to come back.
Fascinating.
Craig Robinson, what does it feel like to score a goal in front of a large home crowd for the club you're playing for? What emotions go through your head?
It's hard to describe. It's like an explosion. It's like all the emotions, all the hard work, everything just comes in, encapsulated in that one moment. You see the ball go in the net, and you watch a lot of strikers now, they hit the ball and they want to see the ball go in the net, so they lift their head so the ball goes over the bar. If you keep your head down and see the ball, your eyes will always catch the ball going in the net. You'll always catch the crowd going like that as well. The keeper despairing, this is how I see it in my head anyway. So that you always see that moment, like, and so it's hard to describe, but it's a moment of sheer joy. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment. That's why I can't have this VAR thing, because I saw the Everton goal yesterday. In a vital moment in the game, Branthwaite scores the goal, just heads it in from 3 or 4 yards, like one of his first goals for the club. He's made up. He celebrates, has to wait, and he's waiting and waiting. And finally, they say it's like a fun sponge. You take all the joy out of it. The scoring of a goal for that moment, that joy, you can't describe. It's better than sex, I suppose. It depends who you have sex with, but it's absolutely magnificent. So I would say it's one of the best feelings ever. And if it's your home crowd as well, but the away side as well, when everyone's booing you or hammering you and you can score and stick one on them as well, that's a lovely moment as well. But scoring in front of your home crowd at the end as well, where the main fans are, as it were, is a beautiful, beautiful feeling.
So I have a few more comments. Paul Hughes, I was at the 1-1 Villa game. It was a great goal.
I'm going to totally agree with you, Paul. I just think it was a magnificent goal, and it's a pity I broke my leg a couple of days later, but that did keep me warm for a couple of nights anyway.
Nino of Cov. Hey, Garry T. How are you, mate? I was a kid, went to your door in Potters Green to ask for your autograph. Thanks for being a sound guy. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
he said, was it in Diana Drive you lived at? Just try to
yes,
recall.
yeah, Diana Drive, yeah, number 7, I think it was like. But yeah, my girlfriend at the time decided we would have a house, so we decided to get this house from there. Got the house, and my house was Tom English was always in my house, and Danny Thomas and Mark Haitley and people like that all the time. And my wife, I mean, she became my wife after. She's like, we didn't move in with these. Why are they here all the time? So they was always there. Or people would turn up at 2 in the morning, and then because it was my house, like, but I bought the house, and then my girlfriend moved in. But after a bit, she's like, people are turning up at 2 in the morning because I was one of the few people to have a house. But yeah, people would be knocking on the door all the time. Kids would be knocking on. Do you want to come out and play football? And sometimes we go out and play. But Tom was always there, like, and I mean, the way I was always told, like Bert Edwards said, the day they don't want your autograph is the day you start worrying, son. And so, like, yeah, if anyone asks me autograph for 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes at your time. It's not a problem. And that's fair. I loved it.
It's Saranji's student, my dad's favourite all-time COF player, and he's been watching since 1972.
That's very nice. I mean, when I played and when I saw the likes of Tom Hutchison, who I still think is one of the greatest players Coventry ever had, Stevie Hunt, who I played with at 3 clubs, and I think he's an unbelievable footballer. Andy Blair, despite the stick I give him, he was a wonderful footballer. Ian Wallace scored goals for fun. In the short space of time at Coventry was magnificent. Bobby McDonald, who came from Coventry, came from Aston Villa to Coventry, most cultured left back I think Coventry had seen for a long, long time. Different class. Mickey Coop, fantastic player. So if anybody said put me in that conversation, I spoke to Brian King the other day, and Kingy was saying it back to me like, what an idiot I was as a kid, like, and he said we had to straighten you out a little bit. But I said it's thanks to you, the likes of you, Kingy, the way you straightened me out, that I actually got myself a career. So to be classed by Coventry fans as one of their favourites, I'm made up with that. I mean, you look at a kid who came from Kingsley who just wanted to play football. If people think I was good or bad, it's brilliant. I mean, I got to say, like, I'm made up with that. Thank you very much.
Bobby McDonald played 161 consecutive games for the Sky Blues. It's incredible in that era.
Yeah,
another fantastic.
I don't think Bobby made a tackle as well. He just clipped that. Great ability. Bobby McDonald come, and he was great because he was a couple of years older than us, and he looked after all us young kids. And Steve Young came not long after, and they'd been at Villa together, so they did look after us young kids, and they spent a lot of time with us as well. They took us out drinking occasionally as well. So yeah, it was a great little spell because they was sort of the conduits. You had the older players, you Terry Lawrence and then Bobby McDonald and Stevie Young, and then us coming through, and it was just, the mix was really nice.
Catty Cats, hi guys, hi Gary, bloody great goal scorer. Can you give Ellis Sims some tips on goal scoring? He used to have a chat to you at Brinklow Garage when you was at West Brom in 1983. So obviously Ellis is struggling at the minute in front of goal. What would you say to him as a veteran?
No, I saw Ellis play mainly when he was at Sunderland last year when he was on loan at Sunderland, and he scored some very, very good goals. He makes good runs. He's not an actual out-and-out target man type striker. He's more like an inside forward, as it were. But I believe he will score goals. I believe that he's gone to a new club. Sometimes your confidence is a little bit low if you don't score a few goals early on. I saw the chance the other day. I'm not sure if it was him or Hadji Wright. I think it was Ellis Sims. The ball dropped to him and he tried to give the keeper the eyes and put it past the post. And it was a great opportunity. All he needs to do is keep getting in them areas, keep hitting the target, and just keep practicing. So when it comes to you again, whether there's 20,000 people there or 10 people there, you'll hit the ball, make your contact with the ball. It's a repetition. And they say, like, you keep doing it, and then they call it muscle memory. By the time you do it, if there's 20,000, 50,000 people there, it don't matter because you hit the target. The ball comes to you, you watch the ball right before it hit the target. It's just repetition. Just keep doing it, but don't panic and don't think like, oh, I don't want to get the ball in the penalty area. Gary Lineker, Ian Rush are two of the greatest centre forwards in my era, and they missed some unbelievable chances, but they never bothered because they knew the next time they would score. The belief in yourself, the self-belief. Ellis Sims is a good footballer, and Ellis Sims would not be if Coventry had not bought him. Coventry City wanted to buy him. They wanted to bring him to the club. If someone wants to buy you, they must think you're decent. So even the days you think, oh, your confidence is a little bit low, someone else has thought highly enough of you to bring you to their club, and that should give you the confidence to think, right, I'm going to show them. We all have bad spells. We all have times where it doesn't go well. The one thing you can't do is stop believing in yourself, because they've come from different areas, a long way to get to this point. Now, if you get to this point and then go, oh, I don't want to play anymore, who are you hurting? You hurt yourself. You're a good footballer. Go and prove to them week in, week out, you're a good footballer. Sometimes it won't work out, but sometimes it'll be magnificent, and the good times far outweigh the bad.
Great words of advice there, Gary. I'm just going to advertise your book again. Garry Thompson.
By the way, I don't advertise, but I've heard that book's absolutely fantastic.
Available in all good.
Mine is signed as well. So there you go. That's signed by Gary.
Available in all good bookshops.
Yeah, if you get Curtis Sport, sell it. And if he's going to Curtis Sport, I'll always sign it because I go down and sign a few every now and again. But the book's gone down very well, considering I didn't want to write one anyway. It's gone down very well.
Gary, I was going to ask you just before we go.
Yeah.
You've seen a bit of Coventry this year compared to last year. Do you think we've got a better chance of going up this year than we did last year?
Yeah,
I personally think we've got a stronger squad.
Yeah. I think the squad in other areas now, I think it's a lot stronger. You've got more variation in how you're going to attack. I think a lot of it was not centered around Gyökeres, but he would score goals. He worked very, very hard. But now you've got you can cause problems out wide. Sakamoto, you've got players in midfield. The young kid you just bought in, no, he scored the other day. You seem to be able to spread it around. You can get goals in different areas. I think the team, what you've done is you've took away a lot of goals from the one area, but you're going to get them in other areas. I think the squad as a whole is stronger. I think the way the manager is learning all the time. I think you're very unfortunate not to be in the Premier League now, and I think that this year you will definitely be in the playoffs. If you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. And from there, hopefully this time it works out nice.
Yeah. Well,
I just need to show you this, Gary, for people watching. I think if you can see it. Oh, here it is.
Oh, yeah.
My Subito player, which I painted black.
I put the number 9 on. Fair play.
Put the number 9 on back in 1977 because Subito didn't have any black players. So I'd like to tell people, I was woke back in 1977 before it was even a word.
Yeah, before there was any woke, you were the man.
I was the man. So we've got one more comment, and I've got one brief question, and we'll have to call it a night.
All right.
So one more comment. I think it was a comment about VAR.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah. VAR sucks the life out of the game. Yes or no?
Stephen, spot on. Totally agree with you. I looked at the VAR, and I did a thing with Stan Collymore, who I knew at Crystal Palace. I was at Tottenham Hotspur. Villa played the first game back in the Premier League, and Stan interviewed me. What do you think of VAR? And I think he'd had people coming on and say, well, it's a great thing because now we've got a situation where it's all going to work out nice. And I went, it sucks the life out of the game. It sucks the fun out of the game. The moment you score a goal, you've got to wait usually 40 seconds, but generally it's about 2-3 minutes before they say it's a goal. That cannot be right. And now, back in the day, referees would make mistakes and we'd get in a pub, we'd talk about it, we'd have debates. And sometimes it works out in your favour, sometimes it didn't. Now, and I could be wrong in this, but generally I'm looking at it and they're still getting it wrong. And so we've got in a situation now where we're wasting time out of the game. The games are going on for longer, and still they're not getting the 100% right. I saw the goalkeeper at Man United, first game of the season, knock the hell out of the centre forward for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they didn't give him a penalty. I've seen so many decisions like that, and I'm thinking, well, you've got someone someone watches that now and watches it 3, 4, 5 times. They put lines on and all that, and they still get it wrong. So why not? If you look at the game, sometimes there's no VAR anymore, and there's more joy about the game and there's more aggression in the game and that, and players seem to enjoy it now because VAR will catch everything. But if VAR catches it, makes the right decision, I'd live with that. There's too many wrong decisions for me.
I'm just glad we haven't got it in the Championship.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. If you got me to the Premier League, you will get such a shock because some of the decisions are made at the time. You're like, I didn't see that one coming. The VAR situation it's a mess. And not all they're doing, they're supposed to be clear and obvious, but now they're looking at different areas. They're trying to pad out their part. Referees are under so much pressure now. They're not refereeing the games. They're half letting VAR referee the decisions, and you're the referee. Prime example, last thing I'd say, Aston Villa play Sheffield United in the lockout, when we locked down.
Lockdown, yeah.
Aston Villa play Sheffield United. The lad from Sheffield United has a shot. Our goalkeeper gets the ball. He catches the ball behind the line. It's a goal. Now, everyone could see it was a goal. We're sitting there and we got monitors and we're like, 1-0 down already. And they look at it. They go to what's it, VAR and all that. No goal. Play on. Now, everybody knew it was a goal. And in the end, they asked the referee and he said, well, my watch didn't buzz. So it went over the line. But you've got eyes in your head, and you and the linesman saw him go over the line with the goal, and they still wouldn't do it because they're relying on other people. Sometimes your eyes to tell you the truth. You've got to go with it, and because of that, people say, "Oh, that's how Villa stayed up because you nicked it, you cheating buggers." And that. No, that was one of we played another 20 games after that, but we stayed up because the referee didn't have the the gumption and that to look and say, no, hang on a minute, that went over there. I don't need a buzzer to tell me that. But people want to rely on the stuff and that. Referees nowadays, they're under so much scrutiny, the thing can only get worse because the pressure they're under now, because every time they make a mistake, people are on them. I worry for them, to be fair.
Yeah.
Who'd want to be a referee?
There's Miles in the background. Miles, I know we're going to have one more question. Would you like to ask it? I think you wanted to ask about Cyril Regis.
Yes, please. Hi, Gary.
How you doing? Right?
It's a brilliant, great pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for inviting me.
I mean, now I'm sorry to say, Cyril was my favourite player.
No.
What? No, he was a great guy off the pitch. He was brilliant. What was he like in the changing rooms and after the games? What was he like out of the game with you guys as players?
You see, most people meet Cyril going to the game or after the game or at functions and that, and he always gave people 5 minutes of their time. He always made people feel as if it was just you and him in a conversation. He was one of the nicest gentlemen, the loveliest pair of people I ever met. When I first went to West Brom, I was a bit I mean, I'm not a shy person, but I meet Cyril Regis and my brothers and everybody like, what's he like, Cyril Regis? Everyone's talking about Cyril Regis, like, and I meet this guy and he's the most down-to-earth, laid-back bloke ever. Like I said earlier, when I played, he was like Cadbury's rabbit because he'd be like, easy, big man, just chill. And the game's going on around him. He was the calmest man you've ever played with. He coached me into being an even better centre forward. I mean, I scored more goals at the Albion probably per game than I scored anywhere else because I played with one of the best centre forwards ever. He was different class, but off the pitch, he was absolutely magnificent as a fella. He also taught me how to drink Scotch and Dry, which to this day now I blame him for that. But everything else about him, he was top drawer. Lovely fella, always had time for people, and it was when we heard it was such a shock for everybody because we'd seen him a few weeks before, and he looked like he was still going to the gym. He looked built, he looked fit, and all that, and it was such a shock, and it was such a loss because. He was a lovely fella, and I don't know anybody that's got a bad word to say about the fella. He's different class. I did something with Brendan Batson a few months ago, and I was saying when I first went, Brendan and Cyril were at West Brom, and I'm looking up to them because Laurie's obviously gone. And sometimes they say don't meet your heroes because they disappoint. These were the two heroes I met that definitely did not disappoint me.
Yeah, I mean, me and my lad, we went to an under-21s game at the Alan Higgs. And he was there on the touchline. That was a few weeks before he passed away. And you were like, when it came on the news, it was just devastating. But you and Danny, and Cyril, you were just amazing, weren't you? You were just brilliant. And I just want to thank you for playing for Coventry City, to be honest with you, because it was just absolutely superb.
Thank you. I thank Coventry City for having giving me the opportunity because there weren't too many other people knocking on my door. I mean, once I signed for Coventry City as schoolboy, then West Brom came knocking on the door and all that. But my old man had given his word. Also, the fact I think they gave him a couple of £100 swayed the deal. But I was so delighted that of all the clubs, as my career developed and that, I go to other clubs, I look around at other clubs, watch other clubs play, and I was so delighted that my upbringing, my development period was at Coventry City because it was the best club for a young player to go and develop possible. A lot of other clubs, Chelsea and places like that, I think I would have struggled. Coventry were perfect for me. It was the right place, right time. And I will forever be indebted to the people of Coventry City because they are magnificent for me.
I'm going to ask a final question of the night, Gary. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Really enjoyed it. I know there's people listening would have loved this tonight. So my question is this. I know you're not very good with short answers.
You've noticed.
Right. You've just been handed your first professional contract at Coventry City.
Yeah.
If you could do it all over again, would you do it as you did it or would you change anything?
90% of it I would do exactly the same. The only thing I would change was how I ended up leaving Coventry City because that left a bad taste in a lot of people, but they didn't know the reasons why it worked out. I wouldn't have gone to Sheffield Wednesday either because they wanted to play me in a different position. But generally, I look at my career and I had a great time, made some great friends. I scored a few goals. I've got nothing to complain about. I've got a bit of a limp, but at the end of the day, it's a talking point when I go into bars. So yeah, it's not been too bad at all. I am grateful. I play for a fantastic club, and it's still, even now when I get to the Rico now, it's still, when I was at Highfield Road and you come by the grandstand area and go to Hillfields where the hostel wasn't that, my heart used to thump and that, like, oh my God, come to sit in it. You know, just give me little goose pimples and that. And I still feel that when I go down to Rico's. I pull up and they know me and they're like, you can't come in here today. And they mess me about a little bit, but it's brilliant. They treat me, there's not like stars and all that. They just treat you as one of them. And that for me, I'll always be grateful for that.
We just have a couple of comments before we finish. So people want to say a couple of things. Glenn Walker, Garry, you legend. I can't say that word on
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn.
Great show and top guy.
Thank you.
Ian Small, great show. Could listen to Tomo all night. Well, we almost have.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, thank you very much, Garry.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
So it's a play up Sky Blues for everybody here at Sky Blue Fans TV. And come back tomorrow night because, of course, we've got our preview of the cup match, I believe, Ken, and the
back to normal tomorrow night. Normal show tomorrow night. We'll go back to it's been fascinating tonight. Thanks very much, Garry, for your time. It's been brilliant. All those memories are flooding back to me, and thanks for your time. We will be back tomorrow. Tonight's show's been in association with Sky Blue Fans TV and BC Radio. We'll be back tomorrow night for our normal show, 7:30. Talk about our unfortunate defeat at Norwich. Very good night to you, and play up Sky Blues.
Play up Sky Blues.
Play up Sky Blues. I'll have that.
3 up front on BC Radio.
Sky Blue Fans TV. For the fans, by the fans.